right, if you're out in the foyer, go ahead and grab your coffee or your hot tea or your water or whatever you're drinking, and make your way back in. I believe tonight you're in for a treat. When this lady speaks, you always know she's been in an encounter with the Holy Spirit, but sometimes you don't know what's going to come out of her mouth in the same thread. So I would tell you to grab your notebooks and grab your Bible. Because there may be a quote that she says one time that she won't remember she said it, but it'll be powerful. But no, it was several weeks ago after one of our services, she texted me and said, "Man, I've got a thought that runs right down this vein," and so it just worked out for this Wednesday to have her come and speak. So would you welcome Miss Tonya Keeton this evening?
You know, most of what I share or try to teach or whatever you want to call what I do is from my own experiences. I think it's really hard to try to teach and preach something you ain't living and something you haven't done. And so just a little bit of background. Probably it's probably been really close to 10 years ago. I was reading a Joseph Prince book. If you want to put that picture of the root up there. And this book, it's called Destined to Reign. And if you've, Joseph Prince is, he's a Singaporean or whatever they are called. He's from Singapore. He's a pack preacher there, full gospel. And he's really hard to watch and listen to, really hard. And but his books are phenomenal. And so a friend had given me a book called Destined to Reign. And this was one of the chapters on the root. And at that time, I thought it was just very enlightening to me. And he tells a story about he was on his platform, hundreds and hundreds of people, and he was fixing to speak. And the Lord kept distracting him with a plant that was on the platform that was somewhat pitiful looking. And finally, he just had to stop. The Lord wouldn't leave him alone and say, "What are you trying to show me?" And this is the kind of the diagram in case. And he said, the leaves were all wilted and weak looking. And he said, the Lord began to speak to him, sickness, and this is the symptoms of this plant was sickness and destructive habits and financial lack and all this stuff. And he says, well, what's causing it? And then, they went down stress and fear. And then at the very bottom is condemnation. And I loved that. And it spoke to my life and, made an impact on me. And then we move on, So years later, I was listening to Bill Johnson a lot. And Bill Johnson has a couple of teachings that he does on the root. And then in 2000 and probably about 2018, we'd moved into a new house, and how many of you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you can just think about your life and know that throughout your adult life, occasionally you have the same sort of behavior that keeps on coming up. It may not be there all the time. You just have a season in this behavior, and it's usually pretty destructive. I mean, it doesn't even have to be sin, but it can be sin. But it can just be behavior that's just not healthy, makes life hard. And I had that. I had a situation that it seemed like, I probably noticed it after I got older. I noticed, why am I here? Why do I end up here? And, I prayed about it and gave that to the Lord and didn't look too deeply into that. And a few years later, here it was back again. That's just kind of dumb. First, we just keep repeating, but it's almost like it's out of your control. So in about 2018, here this thing was back again, bigger and badder than it had ever been. And I got to thinking about this lesson here came to me. What's the root? What's the root of this thing? There's a root to this thing. And I want free, and I don't want this thing to come back around again. I'm sick of this mess. And I began to pray about it, and I began to ask the Lord to show me my root. What is the root? Not this. I know the symptoms. I'm living in them. What's causing this? And I don't believe there's anybody in this room that does not have a root and that does not have a situation that just keeps on. And sometimes we don't think about it like that until, it just keeps happening. You keep having this same type of symptoms from this behavior, but you're not really even sure what it is. And so I began to pray about it. And at that time, we were living out off of Kings Road, and I had a place outside and that I would go every morning. And during that time, not because of the root, but during that time, I had started doing communion on a daily basis. And I was having some health issues, and so I would go out to my place. You can put that other picture up there if you want to, the one of my little spot here. I didn't even know I had this picture. And the other day, I was flipping through there, and there it was. I thought, why in the world did I take that, and why do I have it? But I'm glad I do, because my cats would all meet me right there. And sometimes I'd get happy, and I'd get to speaking in tongues, and Miss Kitty is not Pentecostal. Now, the other two cats were Pentecostal. They just sat right there with me and just talked, we just talked in tongues. But Miss Kitty would get up and leave every single time, and I would pray over every time that she would get on board here with me. But anyway, that's what it reminded me of, is the way she would walk off and turn around and look at me like, what is wrong with you? But anyway, I would sit here. I would go out and get on my swing, and I would sit there, and I would take my communion, and I just had a little list of things, and I just prayed over myself from the top of the head to the bottom of my feet. And as I was doing that and had started doing that, one day I just said, Lord, I am so sick of this root. I am so sick of being here. This is my responsibility to take care of what this is. It's making a hardship on me and my entire family, and I'm tired of it. And I did that every morning. When I go out there, I'd say that. One morning I said, Lord, I really want to know what my root is. And the Lord said to me, Tonya, you do not want to know your root. I said, I do. And he spoke it to me. I have never been so horrified and so embarrassed, and so I was just like, how can that be? Because this thing that he said to me, I began to tell him all the things I did in my life that were the opposite of what that was. And this is what he said to me. He says, yeah, you've done a really good job covering it up. Because instead of the word condemnation that he used, I believe we understand a little bit better the word shame. And I believe that there's shame attached to the root of whatever that thing is. And that's the reason we don't find it very easily, because we're shameful. And let me tell you something. There could be some cases where shame is not attached to it, but I really kind of do doubt it. Because to me, that's what keeps it hid. I mean, if it wasn't shameful, we could all dig up all kinds of stuff, especially, and this is what I was going to say. And, I think we've gotten to this pattern and in our society now to where we don't focus on that. We want to know, well, how did it get there and who gave it to us and who did what? And it's because this one did that and that one did this. Where has that got us? Does that get you anywhere? Are you free because you figured out it was your mama, it was your daddy, it was your aunt, it was your uncle, it was your grandpa, it was your grandma, it was your ex-spouse, it was your friend? That gets you nowhere. That gets you nowhere, and you're probably never getting an apology, or they're dead or something anyway. Come on, let's just get on past that mess, and let's take some responsibility for our own behavior, regardless of why, where, how, whatever. It's us that's living it now. At that time I was, 50. I'm 60, just turned 67, so I was in my 50s. It's not somebody else's fault. I don't know where mine came from because I don't even care. I just want it gone. And, I come out of I'm not out of, still part of, and proud to be part of the Pentecostal type movement. And, our thing is when we get deliverance, it's an event. We may shout, we may jump, we may run, and I've done all those things, and I love all that, so I'm not dogging that. But this was not that way. This was just this quiet thing. This is what it is. It's yours to take care of. Lord, forgive me. And I moved on. I didn't stop thinking about it for weeks because I just was so stunned. And but when I began to see all the areas where this was true, once I got through explaining why it wasn't true, then I began to see, oh, yeah, I do that. Oh, yeah, I'm keeping a record of that. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do this. And then that day, I just repented of that. And I just said, Lord, I don't ever want to be here again. And I have had all kinds of opportunities since then to go there again. But it really doesn't tempt me anymore. It really doesn't call my name anymore. I know what it cost. I know where it takes me. I know how much shame is there with it if I go there. And I don't want to be there. I don't want to be a part of that. Let me look at my notes real quick because y'all, I get to talking. I know that we've all, we swear off of things. We're going to break this habit. We've had it. We're never going to do this again. We do all of those things, but we never do completely get to the whole bottom of what's really going on and where it's coming from. And to me that day, that's what I did. And just as another side note, I had heard a message during that time from Artie Favre, actually. And I don't remember what the whole message was on, but at the end of the message, he made a statement that said, and I put this on Facebook the other day, and Stephanie, I'll share that too. That was awesome what she got from that. Sometimes these young people, they get stuff that makes you look really smart, and golly, you're so dumbfounded by what they got out of something you said. You didn't even go there, and they went somewhere else. But he made this statement that what if, this was the hardest thing I ever heard a preacher say, to take, what if the things in your children that you dislike the most, that worry you the most, that concern you the most, are not about them, but it's about something in you he's trying to get out. I told Artie after church, I said, I'm going to pray about that, and then I'm going to dismiss that. Because I had a situation at that time with one of my children that I was really angry and embarrassed and ashamed of them over some things they were doing. Guess what? It was my root. It was my root. It still hurts when I think about it. The very thing that child was doing that was so heartbreaking was my root. That I had no idea that was what was causing me to do the behavior I was doing. I shared that story the other day a little bit on Facebook, and Stephanie Cox said to me, I don't know if she sent me a message or if she said it on Facebook, but she said, I am not liking how my kids are not being thankful. And so I've really been on them this week about being thankful. And when I read what you said, I felt like the Lord said, how thankful are you? And so that week we were in our lead team meeting, and Emily had given us all a gift for Christmas. And there were 2 or 3 things in the gift. And they were all just alike. They were the same 2 or 3 items, but there was a little bag in there, and each bag was a different color. And she handed Stephanie her bag. And Stephanie pulled out the little thing, and she said, oh, that's so cute. I love red. And Emily or all of us said, well, there's 2 or 3 more there before they come in here. Pick which color you want. And so she pulled out another color. Oh, I like that color. And then she put it back, and she took back the red one. And so we kept going, take the other one if that's the one you like. And she says, no, I think that's selfish. Golly, I don't think I'd have took my little message that far. If I wanted a blue one instead of a red one, I would have took it. So simple, such a simple thing. But yet, I mean, doesn't that sting to think this stuff in our kids that we don't understand and we dislike is maybe they're seeing some of that in you somewhere possibly. Maybe not always, but possibly. I don't know. I just thought that was so good. I loved that I haven't quit that. I've thought of it every day. She wanted to, I think it was blue instead of red, and wouldn't take the blue one, just kept the red one. It's so simple. And I thought today, I was thinking about it, and I said, Lord, you let her raise up 4 of the most thankful, grateful little children that have ever walked the earth. I mean, come on. How selfish are we? That isn't what this message is about, so let me move on. Like I was saying, that with me was all in 2019. And I not one time have returned to any of that behavior. And yet I've had a lot of opportunities have come at me, but it doesn't even cross my mind. It's not even in me. I mean, it's like completely, like you hear people that have complete, total deliverance from something, but yet there wasn't even a big show about it. Just me and the cats out on the swing. You know, like I said, I haven't heard of a lot of things like that because of the way I grew up. It was always a line and a laying on of hands and something like that happened, and I believe in all of that, and I love all that. But this wasn't that way. God can do a miracle in your life just in a calm, peaceful little way, and you know, and it never be a temptation really even to you again. Like I said, the opportunity has come up, but it's not tempted me. I wouldn't go back to that behavior for anything under the sun. Because it's ugly and it's shameful. You know, it leads you into destruction. It causes chaos in your family. See, your stuff doesn't just affect you. It never just affects you. It affects everybody in your family. You know, everybody that your life touches. Jeremy said something Sunday in his message. And by the way, the last 3 weeks of messages that he's preached, 2 of them, I think he actually talked about roots and things. Last week he didn't, but it was still about the root. And it was super powerful, maybe one of the best messages I have ever heard him preach. It was awesome. And if you want to, now that we've talked about this, if you want to run it back and listen to those 3 messages, I think all 3 of them would really, really help you. But they've been the last 3 weeks in a row. And they're from a different viewpoint somewhat, you know, a different way, different steps, because we're all different. And we all do things differently. We all think a little bit different. You know, and so, but last week, he said something, and I don't remember what the line was, but something in it prompted me to think, has the Lord tried to show me this before and I missed it? And I was sitting back there in my seat, and all of a sudden I remembered a conversation I had with my mother. Laramie was 9, and he's fixing to be 40. So 31 years ago. My mother had a conversation with me just in passing, and it was about this very thing. And it was fun. It was kind of humorous the way she said it. My mother was not a big advice giver and didn't do a lot of correcting you. She just had a red line to Jesus' throne. And so you knew, if she knew, he knew, because she was praying. And so she didn't give you a lot of advice, and she didn't try to boss you around. I don't know where, well, we all took after my dad. That's just all there is to it. We're all Coxes. But, you know, Mother didn't do that. But that day, she said something to me that was very profound about my statement that I made, and I corrected my behavior. And so I was sitting over there Sunday morning, and I thought, yeah, that's what a church girl would do. A good church girl will just correct her behavior. a good church guy will just correct the behavior, but I didn't do anything about the root. Do you understand that? Sometimes we just correct behavior because we know it's the right thing to do, but we don't look any deeper. I think the devil loves that. Just correct that behavior and go on with that. In a sense, I wasn't pretending, but in a sense, it's pretending. I mean, I didn't know I was pretending, but I was, because the root of what the conversation was about, it was still here on my porch 30-something years later before I ever recognized it and did anything about it. Listen, I don't know how this sounds to you all, but I hope you get a grasp of how big a deal this could be in your life. I mean, this could be addictions. This could be, gambling. This could be all kinds of habits, all kinds of silly, stupid behavior that you keep returning to and doing the same things over and over again. The reason you had 3 marriages because you keep doing the same things, or you keep marrying the same kind of person, or something is repetitive in your behavior and in the way you think. You're not changing anything. Growing up and becoming powerful in your life for Jesus requires change. It requires you laying down some stuff and letting go of some things. Denying yourself. Taking a red one and when you want a blue one. Caring that your kids are not acting thankful. I mean, I don't know, that one has just blown my mind. I think, dear God, she's passed isn't that supposed to be a compliment when some of the students surpass the teacher? There we go. She got a grip on that I didn't get. So, obviously, this is not really one of those messages where where to end, what to do at the end. Okay, y'all leave. I've told you what's wrong with you. Now let's get up. Y'all go home and think about it. Sleep on that. So what I felt like tonight, I really prayed, probably spent more time praying over this than I did the rest of this, because I've taught this to individual people and in small groups and different things several times. And it's not always an easy thing to find your root, because it likes to hide. It's not going to just jump out there and say, hey, here I am. This is what it is. I mean, you got to get serious and you got to mean it, or you'll just correct behavior and then you'll be right back. And it may be 5 years, it may be 3 years, it may be 10 years. But it keeps coming back. It seems like it gets worse every time it comes back. A little bit worse. And I was thinking about that song, and I asked a little bit over there. I'm doing my thing where I don't remember even who I am. That's what I said. But remember the song that says, and I wrote this, real deliverance is not performance or perfection or striving for acceptance or making up your mind. It's only by the blood. And tonight, what I felt like to start, so I'm not sure whether any of you are going to know your root tonight or not. I don't think it's kind of one of those things. You may. I hope you do. I hope everybody in the room closes their eyes in a minute and they just know instantly. But I've not seen that happen so far with anybody that we've taught it with. It's took some time. And it's not something somebody else can want for you. You have to want it for yourself. And so tonight, what I felt like that the Lord wanted us to do, we did this last night at the women's meeting. I don't know, I've come to do this. This is something Tracy Stevens does, and I just think it's really powerful, is to, if you've grown up in church, and especially, like I said, in the full gospel type movement, we do a lot of laying on of hands, and you get to thinking you can't get anything unless somebody lays hands on you, and Lord of mercy, it's got to be the right hands, But tonight, you know what she says, just lay hands on yourself, because sometimes ain't nobody else really cares. Nobody else really there. Nobody else got the power that night. Learn to lay hands on yourself. And we did this last night at our women's meeting, but we're going to do it again tonight. And just right where you're at. If any of this has spoke to you and you want some answers, I want you just to lay your hands on yourself. You can lay your hands on your head or on your chest, or just wrap your arms around yourself and hug yourself, whatever you want to do. And then I believe that we're just supposed to just commit the behavior. We know, most of us know the behavior, what the behavior is, what the symptoms are, what that repetitive thing that comes around all the time is. And just commit that to the Lord, and that behavior and those thought patterns. I mean, really surrender this stuff to the Lord. Be honest with yourself and be honest with the Lord. And let's just do that, and then let's just say, you know, Lord, open my mind, open my eyes, open my heart, open my ears. I want to see, I want to hear, I want to know. I don't want to ever be here again. I don't want to ever be here again. And Lord, I just thank you tonight for what you're doing in our hearts and our lives. I thank you that you care about Generations Church and the people that come here that want to be free. They want their lives changed. They want to do things different than they were doing them before. And part of that's totally inside of us. It comes down to totally being willing to see the ugly and see the shameful and accept it as our responsibility and make the decision to allow the Lord Jesus Christ to change that behavior, to completely deliver us and set us free. I thank you, Father. I want to just say one other thing it's along the same lines, because there's been, as time has passed, you know, every once in a while I'll say, Lord, do I have another route? You can have more than one, but there's usually one that's the deepest one. And usually a lot of the other stuff stems off of that, just like you saw on that diagram. But one day I was going down the road a few years after this, and I was really talking to the Lord about some other things in my life. And I said, Lord, if you want me to do that, if you want me to stop doing this or that or whatever, I'll, help me to not do that anymore. It wasn't this kind of thing. You know what he said to me, which really, I just almost ran off the road. He said, I'm not going to take that away from you. You choose. I don't condemn you. That was a little different than I thought Jesus worked exactly. I'm not going to take that away from you. You choose. You choose. I don't condemn you. I know your heart. I think we forget sometimes that he looks at the heart. He doesn't always look at our behavior. He looks at our heart. And that's good news, and that's bad news. That's good news, and that's bad news. He looks at the heart and not the behavior. You can come to church all you want to. You can shout the aisles. You can go to the altar every time. If it's all for show or it's all for whatever, mama or grandma or whatever, he knows. Or you can sit back there and never do any of that stuff and truly love the Lord and have a true conversation with him all the time. And walk with him and talk with him, and he knows you're the real deal. I think that's all I've got tonight. Y'all go back and listen to Jeremy's messages, because I think now that you've heard this, you're going to hear those messages a little bit different, especially the one Sunday. The one Sunday was just so good, and I just sat there and I just kept thinking, this is a whole new way to get the root.